Ma- Megan Shill, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. So, just for a brief introduction for people, if they're not aware of who you are, you have a YouTube channel called the Stuttering Lion that you started a few months ago, and that's been getting quite a few views. And I've seen a couple of the videos. It's definitely some good stuff that you're putting out there. As far as what you do, you work as a rehabilitation caregiver and are going to school at Mesa Community College there in Mesa, Arizona. So that's good stuff. So just kind of jumping right into things. So, like many of us, from what I understand, you have some challenging childhood memories with regards to your stutter as well. Can you sort of bring us inside some of those experiences?
Yeah, for sure. Um, so, um, um, I, I guess I really didn't notice that I was talking differently until I was made fun of. Um, uh, and that was in sixth grade, and um, and so from that moment onward, I I I would always like notice the the teachers ignoring me, or like when I raise my hand, I'm like the the teachers would just pick another student, and like that was really hard for me, because I'm like, well, I mean, one, no one stands up for me, and so it's like I don't even have a voice here, and and so because of that, I just became quiet, and I wouldn't talk, because I I felt like no one would be patient enough to hear me out, and when I was a kid, my speech was so bad. Like it would take me maybe 5 to 10 minutes trying to get out a word, and so because of that, I would just be quiet. I would listen, and I wouldn't um, really talk unless I had to. Um, yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how much that parallels my experience at that age. I think it was the sixth grade. I mean, maybe there was some comment made before, but if so, it never bothered me. And I don't remember caring about it until the sixth grade. And so that was when I first got to the age when I started liking girls, and I liked a girl, and another kid liked the same girl. And I guess I don't know, heard me stutter and started using it against me and kind of using it for advantage. And it wasn't total shame at that age. It was just like it kind of got my attention and bothered me a little bit, but not too much. But by the next year, it had really grown in my mind. And I started really trying to make sure that nobody ever saw me stutter. And I had a good stutter. So the only way to have people not see me stutter, like you said, was just to not talk, just to shut
Yeah.
myself up essentially. And, you know, so I try to communicate with like smiles and nods and that sort of thing. But no, you know, very little verbal communication. If it was somebody that was not totally in my comfort zone, and then we moved between seventh and eighth grade, suburbs of Memphis to the suburbs of Atlanta, and I didn't know anybody there, and so I did have some friends in Memphis, which had been friends for years, but at the new place I didn't have any, and so for 3 years basically I just didn't have friends in the new place because I didn't talk to anybody,
Yeah.
and you know that's challenging at that age. So was that, you said it started in the sixth grade. Um, did that kind of choosing essentially to mute yourself and to cut yourself off from other people, did that go on all the way through the end of high school, or how long did that continue for?
Yeah. Well, it, it ended in in um, in eighth grade, when like when there was just um, so much on my mind, and like there were deep emotions, like just really um, powerful thoughts and inspirations deep inside of me, and this was like the last week of my eighth grade year, and and there was one day when I was just um, sitting at my desk, and everyone else was talking and laughing, and I was just quiet because I didn't really make any friends in the class that I was in, and I really just began to ask myself, why am I so quiet when there is so much inside of me that just wants to get out. um, and so at that moment I was like, okay, in high school I'm going to fight for my right to speak, no matter what it takes. And so I will face my fear. I will raise my hand in class, even though I might be made fun of. I don't care. And uh, and so once I was able to fully go ahead and and face the fears that I have, and that's when I was able to really find that happiness, and that freedom of no longer worrying about what everyone else thinks, because I was like, this is my life. I'm not gonna sit back and let other people talk for me, because I mean, I'm I'm gonna grow up. I'm gonna live on my own, and not everyone will be there to order food for me, or to answer any questions that I have. And so if I don't fight now, then I might never fight for my rights. Um, so
That's awesome. And, it's one of the coolest things I've ever heard. And so, so that, well, so you found it 5 years before I found it. I went on like that through the end of high school, and it was the beginning of college when I finally said that to myself, like, I'm done. Like, that's a miserable way to live. I'm not going to stay in a cage anymore. I'd much rather just speak up and stutter and have people, hear me. It might take me longer, but I'm not gonna live under the thumb,
that's right.
of the tyrant that stuttering can be if we allow it to be. So that's really impressive. So you found that at the end of 8th grade, you basically matured to the next stage where you're like, I'm not gonna just live in fear anymore. I'm gonna step up. And so did you notice that your quality of life when you got to high school just went way up? I mean, obviously, stuff
Yeah.
still challenging, but that your life got infinitely better.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, um, um, one of the I think most important um, driving force of have me really looking on the positive side was my belief in God, because I'm, I'm, because I believe that we're all sons and daughters of God, and that God loves us more than anything in the whole world. And so once I placed all of my focus on Him, then that's when I was able to love more and to show kindness to those who would make fun of me. And really, I believe that it wasn't just me facing my fears that helped me have a better quality of life, but the ability to love, like love unconditionally, no matter what a person does to you. And so when I was able to be patient and to be respectful to my bullies, that's what made me happy.
And is that related to being able to forgive them and not to hate them, so that, I'm sure it didn't feel great in those moments, but you didn't carry it. You didn't carry like hatred with you the rest of the day and let it ruin your day and your week and your life.
Yeah, yeah. and really just being able to put yourself in others' shoes. Like most of the time, those who are mean to others are hurting within, and so like for me, I um when whenever I was picked on, I wouldn't tell my family because I didn't want to feel that pity, and so um, and so I I know what it's like to um, feel alone and to feel um, um, different. And so if I place myself in the bully's shoes, then I was able to kind of see from their perspective, and I was able to love them and to forgive them because I saw maybe like myself in them, but not being able to 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 be mean back to the people that were mean to me, but for just I don't know. Does that make sense? Like like there's anger that's built up, especially over time when you're constantly made fun of it. It just like piles up, and then when you can't express it, um, it's like it's uh, uh, um, um, within you. And so for like the bullies, those bullies have anger within them, and they're able to let it out. Whereas for like me, I wasn't able to like really tell people about what I was feeling. And so I guess I just had compassion for those who are mean.
Yeah. And this can obviously be a tricky thing for people because some people hear that and they think, well, that's like rolling over and just letting somebody, continue to beat you sort of thing. But really, I've had that experience too. And basically that ability not to internalize other people's pain and hate. In other words, if they're, somebody's kind of hating on you, being mean, making fun of you, like you said, it's really a reflection of them, not of us. I mean, yes, we have this, stutter, but most people don't go around making people try to feel bad about what's different about them. That's not what mentally healthy, decent people do. So if somebody's a bully like that, right, and you never know what's going on in their life, right? Maybe their dad's beating them, or maybe their parents are, going through a divorce, or maybe whatever, one of their parents lost a job and they're moving from their neighborhood. Who knows what's going on in other people's life. It's very easy to obviously see the world from our own perspective and to understand our own pain and challenges, but not to understand other people's pain and challenges, and to hold maybe other people to a standard that that if we were in their same shoes, we wouldn't be able to fulfill that standard. And, so I think that forgiveness, that letting go, and essentially it's, well, carrying that pain around with us all the time of defining ourselves internally based on what 1% of other people, like the worst, or at least the worst behaving 1% of other people have to say to us is not a healthy way to live, especially when you got a thing like a stutter that's very out there, and if you're going to be talking, then everybody's going to know you have it. There's no way to hide it if you're talking, right? If you're speaking up.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's profound that you realized that at a young age. And it sounds like that came out of your, your faith and your religion. And, that's worth everything that you were able to tap into that at a young age.
Yeah.
And so now you started the podcast, which is called the Stuttering Lion. And what's your goal with the podcast, and I guess in life in general going forward?
Well, the whole reason why I began my YouTube channel was to really build my foundation on becoming a motivational speaker, and it was actually my sophomore year of high school when I found my passion for public speaking, and at that moment, I was like, oh my goodness, I love standing in front of in front of 500 or more people like that. That just makes me so happy, and it's so weird because and you wouldn't really think that a person that stutters would be in love with speaking in front of hundreds of people, but once I found that passion, I was like, why don't I work towards becoming a public speaker. And then I developed this motivational drive within me, and I then began to be more positive, and so when I did that, then I really just became this motivational person. I'm all pumped up, and I'm ready to go. I don't even know how to fully explain it, but motivational speaking is my goal. When I get older, or now, or anytime, I'm ready.
So it's like you found a purpose, essentially. You were like, this is what, maybe this is what I was put here to do, among other things.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. So what was it about being up there in front of 500 or more people or however many people that, that excited you or that made it so much fun? Have you put your finger on it?
Yeah. Love. Because when I look out amongst all of these people, I just get like overwhelmed with love and compassion and it's like I'm putting myself in in every person's shoes, and so when I look at everyone, I just want them to know that that what whatever they put their mind to, they can do anything, and um and I I want to express that to every person I meet, because there are so many people out there that that are negative, that don't think they can do it, but really really they can if they just believe in themselves.
I love that. And so to expand on that, um, is it like by the act of you standing up there, and a lot of people are who have no speech impediment whatsoever are completely terrified to stand up in front of a ton of people and talk, right? It's one of the number one fears. And so do you feel like by standing up there and having the courage to get up there, and most people, so I can speak for myself, and we're in a similar boat. Our stories are similar in a variety of ways. So when I got to college and I finally said, no more, I'm going to start saying, from now on, I'm going to start saying exactly what I want to say. Uh, Mine was slightly less, forgiveness was still an important part of it, but I wouldn't have couched it as love. Like I was thinking more like, look, if you have a problem with my stutter, then get out of here, going out with somebody else. So it was a little bit, perhaps more like, not that I said that to people, but in my mind, like
Yeah.
not to be disrespected anymore. And
Yeah.
if you're gonna sit there and talk trash about my stutter, then don't let the door hit you on the rear end as you leave, sort of a mentality. But I also went from my senior year of high school, where I was hiding in the bathroom stall for lunch every day, rather than find a table that didn't include my only two friends who didn't happen to be in my lunch period that year. So I literally hid in the bathroom. So that was senior year. 5 months later, I got eye contact training. One of my four kids is hounding me to get in, but after the call, I've got four kiddos under the age of 10. But so, so 5 months after hiding in the bathroom, freshman year of college, I started getting eye contact training, which was basically like look people in the eye when you're stuttering.
Yeah.
So rather than look away in shame, look at people, face their reaction. And at that point, I just made the decision: I'm never going to run away from words ever again. Whether I'm going to stutter or not, I'm going to say it. So that freshman year of college at Florida State, I'm raising my hand in big lecture halls with 150 people, asking questions. And in those days, I was had a pretty good stutter going on, just looking around from person the person in the eyes as I'm stuttering, looking at the professor,
Yeah.
almost challenging people to disrespect me. But I felt like, well, and I enjoyed it also. Like I enjoyed it in a way that I never would have anticipated, enjoying talking in front of so many people. And the way that I thought about it is that, man, I must be blowing people's minds because for one, they've never seen somebody that talks like this, much less one that would stand up in front of 150 people and talk and just stutter. So
Yeah.
I figured, and I think it's true, vast majority of people, you know, after they get over the initial like shock, sort of like what's going on here, you know,
Yeah.
when they think about it logically, they would think, wow, this guy or gal in your case has courage. Like they'll just stand up there and just say what they want to say, even with this, you know, pretty strong stutter going on. That takes courage. That's impressive. If they can do that, then maybe I can face my fear, my insecurities, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? And
Mhm.
so you become like a lightning rod of inspiration and courage almost, like,
Yeah.
right? And you know, I like to call it the Stephen Hawking effect, right? The legendary physicist. So from the age of, I don't know, I think it was sometime in his 20s is when he, you know, became incapacitated essentially physically, you know, where he couldn't walk, couldn't talk on his own, couldn't, you know, I assume carry out basic bathroom activity, you know, hardly anything physically. And rather than just sort of lay down and say, oh, I guess my life's over. I guess I'm just going to be, whatever, not achieve my dreams in life. He went on to become one of the most legendary physicists of all time,
Right.
because he chose not to accept that his fate was to be a nobody.
Mhm.
Right. And,
Yeah.
you know, and if he had been able-bodied, fully able-bodied, even if he had been just as great a physicist as he was, we probably never would have heard of him, right? You know, unless we're physicists ourselves, because other than Einstein and Stephen Hawking and, you know, maybe a couple more, I can't name very many physicists, you know? So it literally, he became a total source of inspiration because of his disability or his challenge in life,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's exciting stuff, you know, like, and when it's so easy to think this stutter is ruining my life. It's a disaster. I'm never going to be I'm never going to be fully myself until I stop stuttering.
Yeah.
And to have our happiness literally intimately intertwined with how much we stutter.
Mhm.
That's I think the natural maybe state of mind until we break through,
Right.
get to a new place. But that new place can be glorious, and it can be, you know, it can be turned into a superpower in the
Mhm.
sense of you can stand up there, you know, anybody with a good stutter can stand up there, and by just the act of stepping up there and, you know, whatever we say, you know, I mean, it may be, you know, just as good as the next person, but just the fact that we're doing it.
Huh?
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. And like that reminds me of this this book uh, that's called Mind Gin, and basically it's like it talks about uh, about how we think is everything. And so if we think positive things will happen. But if we focus on the negative things, then negative things will happen. Like let's say tomorrow a person um, 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 trips on like a rock, and then they're like, man, that was awful, and then and then throughout the whole day they're focused on that one thing that happened in the morning. And so if you're focused on that negative events, then yeah, your day's gonna be pretty bad, because all you will look for are those negative things that happen throughout the day. Whereas if you focus on the positive things, like, yeah, sure, I tripped over a rock, but that's okay. At least I didn't hit my head, right? I think that's pretty positive. Um, and so if you look on the bright side of a negative thing that happened, then throughout the rest of the day you'll look for more positive things.
We are what we choose to think about,
Yes.
right? And our minds are, powerful machines, if you will, that are capable of taking us to horrible lows or great high, great positive high points. And some of it is can be habituated too, right? Like, do we get ourselves in the habit of finding the positive? Because really, we could go down a negative rabbit hole for a long time, like, oh, I'm gonna die eventually and I'm just getting older. Well, age is a classic example of this, right? So there's two ways to look at age, the way I look at it. And a lot of people tend to see it more negative. Oh, like I'm 43, for example, right? So one way to look at that is, oh, I'm older than I've ever been before, and I'm just going to get older, and then I'm going to die. Like that's sort of the negative side of it, right? On the flip side, I'm younger than I'm ever going to be. So why don't I enjoy my relative youth? And and that's the same subject, how old we are. We can look at it on the one side of the coin as very negative, on the other side of the coin is very positive. And and there's an infinite number of things, right? There's an infinite number of things that could be better, right? I don't know. I could be, I could have been born with a better vertical leap, so I would have made the NBA. Or, I could, look like Brad Pitt, or I could, whatever your thing that could be better, or a million things could be worse, right? I could have been born 1,000 years ago and have died from the flu when I was, 3 years old, rather than to survive it and have a whole life to live. Or back in those days, you wouldn't have had any running water, you wouldn't have had any antibiotics, or so many things could be worse that aren't. I could be blind, I could be deaf, I could be, in a wheelchair, whatever, right? And so we are what we choose to think about is a really powerful thing to realize, I think. And I'm not saying every person in the world, obviously there are legit mental health issues where people, need help. But for most of us, we have a ton of control, and maybe almost all of us, to some extent, have a lot of control over what mental state we are in and what we choose to see when we look out at this world. I remember my dad saying, when you wake up in the morning and look yourself in the mirror, nobody decides what kind of a day you're going to have other than the person you're looking at, right? Upstairs if you're religious as well. So either way, though, we have a huge influence on the quality of our existence, essentially.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So we're almost to the end. Are there any subjects, any things that we didn't get to that you'd like to talk about? in particular?
Um, hmm. Um, yes. When you were growing up, did you like ever run into anyone else that stuttered?
No, not only with like a group speech therapy thing that I did when I was 18. But other than that, through, yeah, other than in some sort of therapy where there were other people that stuttered that were there, I don't think I ever ran into anybody else that stuttered through all those years. What about you?
Um, there was one one girl that I met in, I think it was my 8th grade year, that 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 also stuttered, and like that was like, I was like, oh, another person, like I'm not alone, which was honestly such a relief, um, to me, because like, um, no one on either of my parents' side stutters, and like I haven't met like anyone until this girl, um, and then she moved away, and then I didn't meet anyone else until I was on my mission, um, um, for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, um, and and the the person had lived in my apartment complex. And so when I ran into him, I was so excited again. Um, but I've only met uh, two people who's stutter in my lifetime, like actually like in person. So,
Gotcha. Um, have you gone to any support meetings, like jumped into some Zoom sessions with other people that stutter, or any NSA or anything like that?
no.
No. So you would thoroughly enjoy it. I mean, you've already gotten a taste of it with the two people that you met in your
Yeah.
life. Well, and so that wasn't, so in the last few years, I've started getting involved with and meeting a lot of folks that stutter because I sought them out. Uh, and so, yeah, so I went from knowing nobody that stuttered to when you start putting yourself in those stuttering communities, you start obviously meeting people, and it's very powerful for the vast majority of people that stutter. That simple act of starting to hang out with others that stutter
Yeah.
really can be a game changer for them in terms of fighting the shame and the
Yeah.
embarrassment and the just that it can be an overwhelming sense of isolation for a lot of folks, to not to essentially feel like nobody knows what they're going through, right? Nobody knows what it's like. And so, yeah, that, you would really enjoy doing that. I'll send you a Zoom link of a meeting. You can jump in if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be great.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Well, Meg, it was fantastic to talking to you, and you're uh, a great story. And I like when you're speaking how you say the words that you want to say. You're not, changing what you're saying just based on what you can or what will come out the fastest. You're really saying what you want, which means that you come out, and the sentence you want to say is what you say, which is I think a good, good example. Yeah, I mean, people can do it however they want to. Obviously, it's a free country, and if they want to change words, that's fine. But I definitely like hearing what people actually have to say.
Right.
They really want to say.
yeah, and like that actually goes like um right into to our fear, because our fear is that we will block on a certain sound or word, syllable, um, and so when we push through that fear and we do it over and over and over again, then that no longer becomes a fear. Because a fear is something that you run from. And so if you continue to run from something like calling on the phone, for example, then that fear will grow increasingly. Whereas if you face it and like, yeah, sure, it might be terrible the first time, but then but but then you repeat it, then it slowly no longer becomes something you're afraid of. And so,
Absolutely. That's the way it works, right? It's like if you're afraid of heights, you know, best way to get beyond that is to force yourself to keep going to heights over and over and over again, and eventually you realize, I mean, as long as it's a safe situation, obviously, heights actually can kill you if you're if you, fall off a cliff or something, but
yeah.
like most of the situations where we're in heights, whether you're on an airplane or on the top of the Empire State Building or something like that, it's very safe. And so the brain eventually realizes, look, there's really no reason to be terrified here. With words, for example, worst case scenario, somebody laughs or somebody's impatient and they walk away. The world keeps spinning, and
Mhm.
we're still the same person. We don't have to internalize that and feel bad. And if anything, like you said, forgive them. They laughed because they didn't know what was going on, or because of their childhood, or they walked away because they're in a big hurry because who knows what's going on in their life.
Yeah,
Thing. So,
yeah, that's right.
so thanks for joining me, Meg. We will.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. And thanks for sharing with everybody that's going to watch this. I think you're a great story and a good example of what's possible. Whether I mean, you don't have to uh, be in total control of your speech to have a great life. So it's fantastic.
Well, thank you. And and let me know if you want to do like another podcast on like another subject or anything, I guess.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I would love to have you back on. We'll do it at some point.
Okay. Very cool.